Hello and welcome to episode 74 of The Imperial Truth. I'm Greg. Joining me as ever is...
Neil. Hi, Greg.
Hi Neil, how you doing?
Yeah, not bad, you?
Yeah, mustn't grumble. We're going to kick off with Element Games. Go and get all your toys at 20% off GW on release weekend. So that means with the news we are going to get Necromunda as a box game. So grab that, or certainly however they're going to release it. Shadespire is coming out soon as well, either October or November. So be aware for all them. If you're into Age of Sigmar, there's shed loads of stuff going on, and we're still going to be getting all those 40k books as well. So maybe nothing from Forge World, from for a Heresy from Element, but plenty of other stuff and tools as well. Don't forget, you can always get your tools, your airbrush paints, your airbrush, all that jazz. And
everything you might need.
Yeah, and go through the link I put up, or the advert on the Facebook page, on the website.
Indeed, yeah, definitely use that every opportunity. But I will take Lil Legend Studios. We've said it a million times, but Miles is fantastic at commission painting. If you don't fancy painting something, you don't have the ability or the time. But obviously, one of his big things now is teaching you how to paint. So go and check him out. He's got a Patreon going where you can get a lot of videos, a lot of tutorials, how-tos. Well worth a look. I mean, even if you're going to just go and check his stuff out online, go and have a look, see what he does, and give him a shout and tell him we sent you.
Yeah, definitely the way forwards. He's I've been taking his advice on brushes and stuff. Went and bought some Rosemary & Co. brushes.
Oh, interesting, yes, because I've got some Rosemary & Co. brushes. They're very good brushes.
Yeah, they're, for the price you're paying, they're I've had GW brushes, I've had Element brushes, I've had Winsor & Newtons and everything else, and, my painting is limited. It is what it is, as they say, but it definitely, I don't want to be spending too much on brushes, but a decent brush is imperative to getting good results. And,
definitely, yeah. And,
there wasn't anything really wrong with Games Workshop brushes, but they're not cheap for what you're paying for. So.
No, and I recently revamped all my Winsor & Newton, so I just bought a whole new set. And actually I was quite disappointed with the quality of the bristles. Right. There was quite a lot of, stray hairs, things not going to a nice clean point. So I was certainly not overly impressed.
Wow.
And Rosemary & Co. I've seen some, I've had some of their brushes, and they are really, really good.
Excellent. Yeah, and I'm also following his brush. He talked on Age of Darkness podcast about how to look after your brushes, and some of it was very simple, but I just don't do. So I'm trying not to be lazy with my brushes now. Keeping the little plastic tabs, storing them upside down, all that jazz.
Oh yes, yeah.
Simple stuff that it's easy not to do.
Yeah, and we can all fall into bad habits. I mean, I'm terrible for probably not looking after my brushes as much as I should.
Yeah, and once you've got some paint in the ferrule, that's it.
Yes,
it's stuff that at some point some of those hairs are going to start splaying out, and you're only going to use it for dry brushing or what have you. So, everything you can do to save a bit of money, you can spend more on toys then.
Exactly, yeah. Who wants to spend money on brushes when you can spend it on models?
Definitely. What are you painting then, Neil?
Not a great deal of late, actually. I've been a bit busy with other bits and pieces, and just working away on the base of Corax. I've got the head and the wings left really to crack on with. So the wings, I was thinking about trying to get an airbrush to do them, because I wanted quite a nice graduated effect. I wanted it to be quite even through all the blades of the wings. So I was thinking about trying to use an airbrush, but my airbrush is still in storage. So right. They've been like the last thing I've been looking to do. But I might have to crack a brush out on them, because I'm sort of getting to the stage where there's very little I can get on with Corax without getting the airbrush out.
Sure. Have you put a post up on Instagram recently?
Of course not. No. I've just
well done. So 2 weeks.
Completely slack as usual.
Yeah, bless him. Feel free to go and have a go at him, listeners. Please. It's he's fair game. If you're on a podcast, you get this abuse. It's fine.
We love a bit of abuse being on the podcast.
Yeah. Have you got your eye on the next Golden Demon?
Not really, no. The 40k one's the next one, isn't it? Coming up in November. And I try to have a bit of thought about what I could do for that, but haven't really come up with anything concrete that I think, yes. Yeah. I think with Golden Demon, I have to find an idea that I absolutely love, or something where I think that's a really strong entry in that category, or something, something. And I can't think of much at the moment that wouldn't be much past my sort of standard sort of stuff that I put in, and I don't feel as though it warrants lots of late nights.
Five guys in non-metallic metals.
Well, exactly, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, you've got another project going on that we won't talk about because reasons. So is that a factor as well, that you've already got a project? Yeah, because I've got that, and that obviously that's a similar time frame. Right, yeah.
That sort of has made me, because I sometimes get a bit carried away when I'm thinking about what I can get done in a set time.
Sure.
And I'll go, oh, right, well, I've got until November, I can get 3 things done, and then realistically that's one thing. It just, the time just vanishes, and then you start going, right, I won't do that, or I won't do that. So I've just started thinking, well, I don't think I'm going to get anything to the first Golden Demon of the year.
Right.
So the 40k one. I'm planning on definitely going to Heresy, so I've sort of bumped it to start thinking, right, well, let's plan my Heresy one and get that sorted, and aim for that.
That's what I was going to ask. That's cool. So yeah, again, competition gamers, got to work to a time frame. I had a bit of a chat.
Do you know what? Most of it's time management, if anything else.
Yeah. I had a bit of a chat with someone about online on Twitter about Crystal Brush, and there were some statements about it basically being the only real premier painting competition in America, and how having professionals in it can sway it one way, and the same people winning, and those kind of comments, which weren't meant, I don't think they were meant in a real derogatory term, but it just made me think of all those times that, you get good, you hang around with people who are good, you get better. And every so often someone comes into that fold and someone leaves that fold, Yes, and I think that's always the same. I think no matter whether you play games, whether you paint, whether you do whatever you do, those people at the top are there for a reason. And until someone comes and pushes them out of the way, they don't really change, do they?
Yeah, no, and this Mengele Miniatures, wasn't it, that you were...
Yeah, Tyler. He came up with some very very good points about the issues with Crystal Brush. I absolutely agree with a lot of them. The online voting for a painting competition is not a good way to do it, in my opinion, but it drives clicks to their website. So, for 10,000...
Yeah. Even if those clicks are robot clicks.
Yeah, or just your thousands of followers wherever. But, that is a fundamental different issue. But it was interesting chatting to him, seeing his viewpoint on it. As a person who entered, who probably won't enter again because of the nature of how he perceives it. That's fair enough. You are free to do that. There are fundamental issues with Crystal Brush. Paying for people, one of his points was paying for people to come from abroad, means it's not really kind of the same, but I kind of think that people would travel without the money involved.
There's definitely a
prestige
element of that. It used to be that the UK Golden Demon had everyone come from all over the place. You had the Spanish team, you had people coming from Italy, and I know travelling around Europe is a lot easier than, say, flying to America or them coming over here. But you still got, Sebastian Archer used to win loads of demons in the UK Demon. He flew from Australia to compete, And let's face it, there's no money at the end of the Golden Demon. You don't go, well done, here's your trophy, and please pick up your check.
No. The only thing they can do is put Golden Demon winner after their name when they're selling their services or models.
Yes.
Which can affect it. But I think even if you remove that level of kind of professionalism from an event, then you just get a different top tier.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
I think no matter what you do, within the restrictions of your settings, there will always be a certain group at the top of that tier. I don't enter Golden Demon because I know that I would have to put as much effort as you do in just to get a finalist pin. Yeah, or to get a good finalist pin now. Yeah, potentially. So I pull back from that. I know I'm not going to break into that top thing, and I don't want to put that effort in anyway. We've had all that discussions before, but there was some interesting chat on that, which was it's quite good to see. I do think a lot of gamers view painting competitions, and they're very good painters, a lot of these guys, but without having been in it, from only being in it a handful of times, they don't get fully to appreciate what's going on. I think there's a little bit, you're painting for a competition because actually some people started talking about styles, and you won't get noticed if you don't paint this style. And it's like, well, having talked to the judges and heard them sincerely say things, yes, we are human. We are always going to have our favourite things, our least favourite things. But if you choose a style that's great and don't perform it perfectly, you're probably not going to get judged, higher than anyone else.
Yeah, I always use. I think we've touched on this before that, it's a painting competition. So if you choose a style and you don't execute it perfectly, doesn't matter how complicated that style is, but you haven't done it well enough. So therefore, you don't, you won't place or get as high up because you haven't executed. It's a bit like diving. You pick a really difficult dive and you don't do it properly, you get 0 points. But if you pick a simple dive and pull it off immaculately, you get a few points. So it's one of those sort of, you've got to weigh up how difficult it is versus how well you can execute it.
I'm not going to quote your knowledge of diving points there. I think it might be a little bit more complicated than that. But certainly, I know that people perceive that certain styles are in vogue, so non-metallic metals. But I would say, in your case, you win models because you are very good at that style. And why would you use a lesser style if you're trying to achieve a Golden Demon? And then that goes for everyone else who does well in Golden Demon. So the more they do well, the more often you'll see that style repeated.
You see a lot of good painters. And I suppose it's the same in the gaming community as well. Once you find something that works, you sort of stick with it. You don't go, well, do you know what? I've done really well with that, but now I'm going to throw that away. I'm going to start again on something completely different. No,
especially at the big competitions, because that's where you're going to rely on your strongest skill set. So it was definitely interesting chat. I was seeing other people's perceptions, and as I say, every competition's is set. All competitions are set up a different way, and we've said a number of times you have to play to that competition's rules. So, if you were entering Crystal Brush, you want something that looks good on camera. Now you have to hope they photograph it well, choose a good background, all that jazz, whatever. But you're going into that competition knowing how they're going to judge it.
Yes.
So you play the rules, don't you?
Exactly. It's the same as any competition. You work out your strength. You work out how it's going to be judged. It's the same when you pick a category in Golden Demon. Certain categories that you could do well at. Ones that are weaker than others. You play the odds. You don't just go in and go, "Oh, I'll just hope for the best." No, absolutely. And it's and in fact, one of the questions was, should there be a professionals category like the open competition at Games Day? But again, that just all that does is how do you define when you haven't got? So the open is for people who work at GW, right? So that's a clearly defined. Very easy to put people in that category.
Yeah. How do you define a professional?
Yeah,
and once someone and then one of the other suggestions was if they win it a certain amount of times, well, all you're doing then is you're making that second category bigger, like the professionals, the winners, but you're still going to have a cream again at the top. But also that if you've entered every year and you finally win on your 25th year, is that because you just aren't as good as the people who have won the 24 years before. So you're going to move into category.
You cleared out the competition, now you win.
Yeah, so it's an interesting prospect. I kind of understand what he means, but I don't think practically you can do that. And Tyler's a great guy on the scene, does a blog, Mengle Miniatures, and everything else. And, full credit to Tyler. This is not having a go at him. This was just me seeing his comments and kind of reacting on them as well. And there are certain issues. I haven't followed Crystal Brush as closely as him, but claims of models winning without their backs being painted properly, and there is definitely, if you've got a good internet presence, you're going to have a bigger chance of winning. Well,
I think the whole thing of the
and the bots,
it being voted on online as well as judge voted, you would always worry that someone could skew that. And if you've got a big following, very easy to get people to vote for you. And
you just can't judge paint on a photo. The techniques don't come through.
Yeah.
I actually trust who's the main judge there? Is it Jen? Jen Haley?
Crystal Brush.
She's been there. It is Jen Haley, isn't it? The ex Golden Demon winner?
Yes.
She's been at that table certainly as one of the main judges. And I would trust her completely. She's won multiple demons and everything else years ago. Some of the most famous kind of demon winners there had been. So I would trust her, but, would you trust me to judge the best painted one when you wouldn't, would you?
No, exactly. And I think that's one of the things I think with like these sort of competitions, they're very difficult because everyone's got their own aspect of what they like and what they don't like. And then you sometimes could look at it as you need to have someone there that has a level of ability to say, I can see what they've done there, I can see what they've, how they've done that. But then some of the best judges, you could argue, are people that are technically inept of actually doing it. Like when you've had, certain judges have, maybe had very little experience in actually painting to that level, but can really see what's going on. You have a good background now in the Golden Demon, sort of how things work.
Mm.
And you could easily look at someone's model, as you have done in the past, and said, oh, well, that's not good enough for Golden Demon, or, you need to do this, you need to do that. Because you can start to see...
Yeah, broad strokes.
What is good, what is bad.
Yeah, I've got the very basic understanding of what to do, but when it comes down to the nitty-gritty, the top end, I'm not able to distinguish why something's better than something else when there's, it's fine lines, as it were. But it's just an interesting one. That was a complete aside that we hadn't planned, but that popped up. It's good to have these things every now and then. Twitter's not the best sometimes for those kind of conversations. Can get a bit long-winded, but it was good to see.
Sometimes hard to keep track of them on Twitter because they jump all over the place, don't they?
Yeah, some do. Yeah. Your notifications keep buzzing off as well, which can be really annoying at times. It's all part of the fun. So, should we do some what's been going on? I think we should. This week we've had some Blood Bowl releases, and Games Workshop have been busy elsewhere, but they also gave us a number of Heresy releases. I say a couple really. The Sisters of Silence Prosecutor upgrade set. So we talked about these. They're a lovely kind of set of arms when you look at them, and still, I think some of the models they work fine on. Some of them are less fine. I don't think they're bad.
I think it's awkward because I think those plastic kits were not sculpted with having add-ons in mind, and they've had to do the best they can to get things to fit. And
I think we hold Forge World to a high level of of quality, and we're saying they haven't fully reached that. Again, they're not bad. And some of them do look fantastic, actually, when you pose them up. And it'll be a case of getting the right models with the right right weapons, and that can be as much down to the individual. And if you feel comfortable playing around with some green stuff, you could even, make it a little bit better than that.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, they're out. So what's that? It's £12. It's not bad, is it? Don't know how much the Plastic Sisters are, but you're £12 for the arms. It's okay.
If you've got some sisters sitting around in your box that you haven't used and you fancy,
Yeah,
£12 not bad.
I'm guessing sisters will be £25 for 5 because it's £37 to buy them with the upgrade. So that's cool. And then on top of that, we have the Aquilon Terminator Squad. £49 for 3. These guys are big. They are beefy.
You saw them at the open day?
Yeah. They're custodian Terminators. You can see, because the only picture we've got of them on the website is with one of the skimmers in the background, the transport, and that transport's a big piece of resin. And there's 6 Terminators around it. And it does not look that big compared to the Terminators.
I often forget how big the custodes are because the standard plastic ones.
Yeah,
I forget that they're not in Terminator armor.
Yeah,
because then when I look at them, I think, oh yeah, because they're Terminators, and you think, no, they're not. They're the standard guys. The Terminators are yet to come.
Yeah, if you want a good idea on the size of them, they're on 50 mil round bases.
50. Wow, that is big.
Yeah, yeah. Which there's quite a bit of room left on the base in terms of how their feet are, but their shoulders almost fill that whole 50 mil sideways. They are pretty beefy.
That is large.
It is large. So yeah, you get 3 guys from that, and they're a lot of points as well. So they're going to eat up your points, as it were, and they will come with 3 different helmets. One helmetless option. And some weapons they come with. Solarite Power Gauntlet with an option of an Adrathic Destructor or Lastrum Stormbolter. So there's going to be a different version or an upgrade for the fire pikes and the different bits and pieces.
They do look good. I mean, I think the fire pike ones look pretty cool.
Yeah, long. Yeah, whether those pikes are going to survive travelling.
That's another problem, actually.
It is a problem. I'd be tempted to PVA them or something, just to maybe help give that a bit of support. I don't know if that would work. Just to help kind of strengthen that. Maybe there's a better way.
Or a clever way of magnetising it so you can just take them off.
Yeah.
And then click them on when you want to play them.
Yeah, they're not the thickest of things though, but it'll be interesting to see. I quite like the Adrathic Destructors. They're quite a groovy new little, really blunt force weapon, which is quite cool. But yeah, they're looking fantastic. And after a couple of weeks of not a huge amount of stuff, it's nice to see. And we'll as we said before, I'm sure they're just working through the things they've shown off, and we know that there's Book 8's being pushed back. There seems to be a bit of a desire to get everything done that needs to be done. So I don't think we're going to see any Space Wolves until they have everything ready to go, so they can release over the course of, say, a month, pretty much everything Space Wolf. Kind of the same way they did with the Thousand Suns. I think that's going to be a way forwards. And within that, hopefully we're going to start seeing all those units we've missed out from previous books. Book 8's going to take some time to write. They've been working on other things as well. There's a lot of stuff going on we've already mentioned, and it gives them that time then to think we'll get it all lined up and hopefully get the Blood Angels stuff lined up to come out as quick as possible as well.
How does that make you feel about your Space Wolf stuff?
Cool, whatever. It's coming. We know it's coming. If it takes a couple of extra months, it's fine. I can cope. I've got. There aren't many of us who are specifically waiting for, something, are there?
No.
You can go and buy the vehicles. It's if you are waiting for your space, if there are going to be the odd person who's like, I've got my vehicles, I've got some troops, and then just waiting for this bit. Yeah, it's going to be an annoyance. But almost everyone else could be getting on with something else. I mean, I'm cool.
Yes.
I'll paint a knight. I'll paint a Blood Bowl team. I'll paint something else. There's always something else. So
in the world of hobby, there is always something else.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can always look past that. I think
Yeah, and I think with all these things, I mean, let's face it, most Space Wolf players have been probably waiting a long, long time.
Book 3 confirmed, pretty much. It's going to be the next book.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I'll start planning my army list now, and all this. All these conversations that people have had.
What, 4 years?
Exactly. Yeah, and so I mean, I think some people will be, used to the wait. Let's say. So.
Yeah. I mean, we're on the internet, so you're going to get a lot of whining. That's part of the course, isn't it? But
that's what the internet was designed for. Wasn't
yeah,
it?
absolutely. But it's not a major thing, is it? It's not like White Scars, who don't even know when they're going to get the book. Bearing in mind the Dark Angels, the Blood Angels is going to be another year or whatever from now. So it's a minor thing for us to moan about. And we got our Primarch already as well. Yeah. There's worse case scenarios than this.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Oh, I don't think there's much else to talk about. Before we go in, we're going to discuss you've got a nice subject you came up with, the life cycle of an army.
Yes.
And we've got Rob Ing back on. People may remember that Rob came on his journey of getting into 30k, having been out of wargaming for a little bit. So we're going to continue that in the build-up to First Blood. So we'll come back and we'll discuss the life cycle of an army. Right, into Neil's little choice of segment here, the life cycle of an army.
Yes, indeed.
So
yes.
What were the thoughts behind this?
Well, I was sitting on Twitter and I was watching people post up pictures of their armies and also watching people post up, selling of armies. And I just got to thinking about, the hobby life cycle when, you start off with an army and where that goes through and where it leads to where it ends up. So for me, I have probably a different destination to maybe you and other people. I don't really sell much stuff, so I look at things in a different way. And it just got me thinking that maybe there are different avenues that people go down and what those could be. Yeah,
certainly are. When you start to think about it, there are quite a few different things going on. And there's so many different variables, I think, that go into it. So, we might as well crack on, I suppose. So, where do you start? What's your starting a new army? What drags you in?
Well, the funny thing is, I found often, obviously, I'd pick a legion that I'd want to do. So that was usually my starting point. And then I'd often just end up list bashing, literally just looking at books, thinking what I like the look of, trying to pull together a list that I thought was pretty useful, that had lots of different uses. So I'd sort of battle scribe it, or just sit there and just write out, what about if I use this with that and this with that, and just formulate an army that way. So I was very sort of I wouldn't say tactically driven, because I always tried to balance the army, if you know what I mean. I wasn't trying to look for the nastiest, hardest army. I was always just trying to look for something that I thought worked well. But for me, it usually was pick a legion and then just try and make a list that was useful, that I felt as though could cover a lot of angles, that had a bit of tank killing, could deal with troops all right, could deal with elites, how do you deal with certain Lords of War that people like to bring, and just try and theory hammer out a few bits and pieces that way. That was usually how I would go about the initial start of an army.
Fair enough. So you would do all that before really purchasing too much?
Yes, pretty much. Yeah. I mean, I saw this very much of almost like a 3-stage process. The start, where you're trying to plan how you want to create that army, and obviously there's different ways of doing that as well. There's some people will want to recreate something from one of the books. There might be someone that wants to recreate an army that they've seen somewhere else, whether it be a tournament list that they saw that was really good, or something that someone's done on the internet or on Instagram, or any of these sort of ways, getting inspiration. I would say the first port of call.
Yeah, and I think the nature of this chat is more about those armies that are designed for a purpose rather than, say, my Space Wolves, I'm going to collect everything I can. It's an open-ended project where sometimes people do think, okay, I want a 3,000 point force of salamanders, so I can take it to events, I can play at 3,000 points, and I want it to be complete. It does happen more than my gaming group probably do, but it's not always the obvious thing that you see people do. Some people are happy just to add into what they've got. I'm that kind of gamer. I've done 1 or 2 armies ever, which have been, here's my focal point, here's my goal. One of them was a Warhammer tournament army. It was like, right, 2,400 points, this is what I'm going to do. And as you say, if you're looking at it that way, you kind of want to possibly have the list kind of sorted out, as you say, beforehand. I think you're working towards a goal. You don't want to, if you only want a 3,000 point list and you want a specific 3,000 point list you want to work on, you don't want to be buying it halfway through going, actually, I've got 2 or 3 things wrong here, and buy more, because that kind of defeats the point of trying to collect a 3,000 point army only. So
yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I think, how did you build your Mechanicum force? Because that's quite an ongoing project. You've added bits to that, haven't you, as you've gone along?
So I was at Forge World Weekender, Heresy Weekender, saw Thanatar. I was like, rubbish. Okay, buy a Thanatar. Okay, I'm going to need some other stuff to go with it. I'll buy some Thalax. Okay, I'm going to need an HQ. I'll buy an HQ. Oh, look, these new cool models have come out. I'll buy one of them. Oh, I'll buy some of them. I'll buy a tank. Oh, I need some tanks. Yeah, I'll buy one of the tank. Oh, that cool knight's out. I'll buy that. And that's pretty much it. And it's never been there's only been a couple of times where I've thought, right, Castellax. I never had any Castellax till not long ago. I was like, right, I'm going to go out and buy some Castellax. I want to add them in. And then in looking at the army for things this year, including going on 30k channel, I was like, right, I haven't really got enough troops. I want to bolster them a little bit. I'll buy a load more Thalax in. I'll buy a second Thanatar because that's quite fun, which is still unmade, well, 3/4 made. And I've got another Trioris sitting there because that was a gaming kind of, right, I've got these troops. Some of them need to get forward safely. I need to buy another tank. Well, I want to get another Krios Venator at some point, but holding off at the moment because there's enough in that army to mix it up, to play 3,000 points with it and mix it up every game for at least 10 games quite easily. So I can bring the knight in, drop the knight, bring the Atropos in if I want. They're big chunks of points that can take up other stuff. So that's it's more of a sporadic purchase. Your sort of army creation, isn't it? It's been built as it's gone along, one bit at a time, no sort of predefined plan. Well, I suppose with the Mechanicum as well, new stuff's always coming out. Yeah.
So it's a little bit different to most Marine Legions where you know what your special units are, and there might be the odd new tank come out, but you pretty much can write a whole list from the first 3 books.
Well, I think there are 2 things, and I kind of jumped to the end a little bit on this, but I'm not the type of person who likes to sell armies. They take me too long to paint. They take me too long to build. And to go and sell that is not the money loss that you might make. It's the time invested. If you can build and paint the 3,000 point force in 4 months, then you're going to be much more willing to do that again. If it takes you a year and a half, you're not going to be willing to do that again, yeah? So right from the outset, I'm not a person who sells on my toys lightly, whereas other people are quite prepared to go, bish, bash, bosh, here's an army, I've powered that out, it looks cool, but I know that I can do that again and move on to the next project. Or someone who gets bored with it. I'm not someone who will get bored with playing Mechanicus. I've got just enough to mix it up and to do different things with it either. So I think that is an important part of whether you do this at all. Also, whether you're happy with that. Like, I'm happy to explore the options in something as well. I very rarely have a very specific thing I'm going for. That, for me, happens in tournament games. So in Age of Sigmar, I'm very easily, although with my Stormcast I want to collect everything, I could very easily see me getting a sort of list, because Age of Sigmar is going to be changing every year. So with 40k now, that's less likely to stay, exactly the same for a long period of time. But to have a rough idea of what I want, and just by that, I've done it once or twice with Warhammer. I could do that again. But in Heresy, I'm like, I'm just going to keep playing Heresy, and I'm not going out to win everything. So yeah, I can go and buy this unit, and if it doesn't perform as well as like the Voraks, I bought them because they look cool. When they first came out, they weren't very good. They're a lot better now, and I will continue to go and buy the models I like.
Yeah, so, and they were very poor when they first came out. I remember everyone going up there. They're
pretty useless.
They were useless, but they really sort of upped them over time, didn't they?
Absolutely. But if you're going in, I mean, people can do this for a variety of reasons, as we said, but I think most of it is a personality type, or like an ability, skill level, quickness type of person. I think you will find less people doing it who take longer to paint. And sometimes it's army choice as well. If you're going to be painting Solar Auxilia, it might be harder for you to put in that much effort over that many models, or militia, something. Whereas if you've got a Custodes force, you might think, yeah, I'll whack this all up and then use it for 6 months, 12 months, and then move it on, or whatever. Or be happy that it's a 3,000 point Talon force, but actually most of the time I'm going to use it as allies. So there's that as well. Yeah. There's lots of things you can do there. You talk about just making a list on Battlescribe. Don't talk to me about Battlescribe at the moment. Oh, the way they produce their finals. Oh, horrible. And people insist on just, oh yeah, I'll use the Battlescribe format. Oh, no. But yeah, there's Battlescribe, Army Builder, Quartermaster, all pretty good tools if you like the one you're using. And you can work out within reason. Again, not everyone works that way. I can easily kind of identify. It might not be perfect, but okay, what am I need to do? Okay, I'm playing Mechanicum, which means that I'm going to have these big robots. I'm going to be able to do this quite well. Okay, cool. So what are the things I don't do well? Well, maybe it's long range anti-tank. Okay, so we'll include something to deal with that. Cool, I've got that in. And you can work your way through what you need. Some people need to play the game to do that. So whether you...
Yeah, and I know I've done that as well. I've often will build an army, play with it a few times, and then do minor tweaks to it. Often not changing the real core, reason that I built the army in the first place, if it has a certain theme or a certain way I wanted it to play, but just tweaking a certain couple of units in, or a bit of war gear, just to make it feel as though it's a slick fighting machine, rather than having units that I know that will, every time I use them, they'll just sit at the sidelines and not do anything.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, there are ways of doing that. You could proxy before you do it. If you want to do a new Legion, you've already got a Legion. Well, you could have a game just to get a feel for what's going on without having to go and buy everything.
Yes.
Which is a sensible idea as well. And you say you get the idea of what Legion you want to play and work from there. I'm seeing... fairly often that people will either gravitate towards a certain model and base an army around there, or a certain story. So, say Ben, London Heresy, wanted his Webway War army, his Mechanicum. After reading The Master of Mankind, it's like, right, I want this little force that fights in the Webway and is trying to do this and that, and that's his kind of force that he's got there. And that is something which... I know Dan, who's been on this, a little while ago. Whenever he used to read a book, he was like, "Right, I'm doing this Legion." But it can be as simple as scene.
Easy trap to fall into, that, isn't it?
Yeah. It could be say if I did a Blood Angels army, it will be based on the opening scene of Fear to Tread, where they drop down, because it's amazing. It's so cool. And it would be that. People will pick out certain fights that their Legion's well known for. You might just do an Isfan 3 or Isfan 5 little task force led by, say, Saul Tarvitz or one of the characters there, Loken. Very easily pick out, right, these are the remnants of, and go from there as well. But I think it definitely, for me, I think it comes down to the person almost more than the desire, because of the nature of those things. Some people don't have time to paint, It's not that they paint slowly, it's just that they've got families, they get work, a couple of jobs or what have you. You can't find that commitment to sit and paint. Or they're painting for competitions too often. So their army never gets finished. That's
the problem, that is a big problem.
But okay, so that's kind of the beginning of this type of army. I honestly think that those kind of, my Space Wolves are my Legion. So I will just, when I finally get round to really cranking on them, I'll just be like, cool, Eventually, I kind of want everything Space Wolves, like one of everything at least. Whether that ever happens or not, but I'm quite happy just to add more into that. And the Mechanicum are kind of the same again because they're so beautiful in that you can just switch it up all the time. But I could see myself getting like a Talons force and having a smaller force. I mean, it helps.
I think that's the beauty of those smaller forces.
Yeah.
Is knowing that you could build a 500 point or whatever and then bolt it on to whatever you were looking to play and finding some way of including it in another army, which is always a good way of doing things. I
think the Talons are a perfect example of that because they're not just adding a different Space Marine Legion in, and the Mechanicum the same as well. It's fine, it's cool. Yeah, I could do Space Wolves with Salamander's allies. That would be awesome, but I'm adding some Space Marines to my Space Marines. So if I'm going to paint Space Marines, I might just paint them Space Wolves, I might just, rather than getting a unit of Salamanders in, I might just go, well, I haven't got any Recon Marines, so I'll paint some of them. But particularly Talons and Mechanicum, Solar Auxilia, a bit, and Militia might be quite a few models again to do that, but at least it's something different.
Definitely.
But we shall see. And with Demons, being in Book 8 whenever that comes out, that real allowance to have a demon kind of force, even though you can really do it in certain instances anyway. Again, that's another good example of something that's very different to bring to the table. So once you've decided what Legion army you're doing and you've got an idea probably here of what your list is, or rough idea of where you're going to go with it, what's the next stages?
Well, I put the next stage as a sort of the middle stage as being the sort of the building, painting, the gaming element. Now, obviously, they're all quite big things,
sure.
But that can also be, like you said, like you buy your stuff, piece by piece. Maybe doing one big spend, maybe it's one big Forge World order. You know exactly what you want in your 2,000 point list. You buy it all from Forge World, job done. It could be that you're looking to buy second-hand parts and plastics and third-party items. So it could be that the building element could come in many different forms, and that could be you could put that together however you see fit. But then also it's the what are you doing with that army? Now that could be that you're taking it to gaming events. You could be going to the numerous events that are out there, Blood and Glory, all the other, the GW ones run at Warhammer World. There's a great plethora of events that you can go to now for gaming. So a lot of people probably are looking to use their army for games. I mean, let's face it, most people are building it to get some games in. That could be at your local club with your mates, at an event or a tournament. And I'm sure there are people out there that look maybe to build a list purely for a tournament or an event they're going to, as you were saying earlier.
They definitely are. This is the bulk of what we're talking about. So, you're making your army for a reason. So either to play it or to show it off or what have you. most of the time, I think if you're looking at a whole army, it's to play it. Because if you're going to show it off, then you might be looking at, rather than going for an army, you'll be looking at, oh well, this model's cool, I'll go and collect this. There's less of a structure in that respect, potentially.
Yeah.
Not to say that people don't do that, but it is. But this is where you're going to get the money out of what you're doing. And as you say, looking at purchasing, I think because essentially we've covered gaming. You know, everyone knows what we mean here when we're talking about gaming, but that's getting the use out of your toys. What you might do is you might build your army in parts, so you can go to certain events or use them initially as an allied force while you're building it up. That's something you potentially can do, or a Zone Mortalis force first, and then increasing the points from there. Things like people do the slow grow kind of leagues, where it's 500 points for the first 2 months and then 1,000 points, and people work together, a number of people working together to get new armies up. So there's lots of different ways of doing that, and having a tailor for gamers type thing can work quite well. But where you're going to get those models from is becoming much more a possibility of not going directly to Forge World. So where I say that, I don't mean going and buying knockoffs, but Forge World's got everything, so everyone knows that. But if you live in certain parts of the world, it might be awkward to get it done, and postage and everything else. If you're, it's expensive. There are ways to do things a little bit cheaper, which is sometimes a factor because it's an expensive hobby we've got. With the growth of 30k, we've had the growth of 30k trading. So there are the Facebook groups, there are trading bits on forums and everything like that. And actually, there's quite a lot of Heresy stuff out there at the moment. And if you're prepared to wait and put your feelers out there and have a look around and sometimes take a risk, but there are ways of mitigating that risk. Getting lots of photos, getting exactly what you want, then you can pick up some good deals. I mean, I just missed out on that Mastodon that was completely built quite well for £280. I was 15 seconds too late. I was gutted because I haven't seen one come up that's been well built since. I've seen one that's not that well built. But knights, looking at a knight at the moment that's 40 quid under the Forge World cost, plus post. That's the starting price. But again, it's built well and built in a decent pose, better than I could do. You can find some good deals.
Yeah, so there's many routes to market to get your army off the ground, and it could be that's something to consider. When you're first starting, how you gonna do that.
I think building is a big part of this, because if you are looking at a specific army, then if you're looking at it purely for a gaming thing, then you're probably going to go, okay, I want all my infantry to be plastic because I'm not that bothered about the aesthetic, within reason. This is all talking, but I want them, I want to paint them, but I'm not that worried about how individual they're going to be. I'm not worried about being unique with the way I do them. So you know what? I can pick up 30 Mark IV dudes for not much, because everyone's always selling a bit of their Betrayal at Calth set or their Prospero set or what have you. And you can do that. Whereas you might think, right, okay, so this is the Space Wolf force that was sent to do this on this planet. Okay, how am I going to break this down? Well, we're going to have squad whatever, and it's going to be led by this guy and these guys and these guys and these guys, and I'm going to individualize every one of them. Or this is the survivors. I'm going to do a Black Shield force of the survivors of Isfan 5. A few who got off. Okay, so they're going to be a mixed match of armour. They're going to be battered up, and I'm going to draw in bits from all over the place. So that is a very defining kind of factor of what you're doing, and will result in a very different style of approach for purchasing your army. And that's where third parties products can come in. So if you want slightly different bolt guns that look stripped down, if you want if you want some cool stuff to put on your tanks or to make them up, if you want different heads, because, not all of their armour works that well anymore, that kind of thing. Then there's a lot more scope now.
Bits websites as well, because there's some great crossover from like Age of Sigmar that you can do. You can really make some stuff look really cool. Yeah. So it's always worth checking that, I'm going to put some Liberator heads on those guys, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that, and just changing stuff up.
Well, even then, there are starting to be resin bits sites. Now that's starting to become a thing. It's going to be less kind of expansive than the plastic ones. But if you want the dead body from a Primarch's base, there's potential that you can pick it up, if not through Facebook for the trading groups, that you can pick it up through one of these people who's selling resin bits. But as you say, Age of Sigmar stuff, 40k stuff's kind of, is that little bit, it's getting a little bit bigger, it fits in quite well. There's lots of cool stuff to be going out and finding, or even making your own. Yeah,
definitely. Always worth making your own.
And one thing you have put here, you put armies on parade and stuff like that. That's something that, in fact, armies on parade sometimes can feed into the whole process. I want to make an army for armies on parade, which I can then game with. People do it.
Yeah, that has a whole other element to it, because then you've got the display board, and that again can add into the story of the whole piece. I think so. You can say,
again, I think your gamers are going to look less at that. Your narrative people might look more into it, and your actual the more hobbyist style gamers will be even more keen to try and maybe do something a bit different with that as well. But
the other thing I wanted to bring up as well was, I know not a lot of people would look to do this, but in the latest classic Golden Demon, the winner of the gold for the open category was a complete army.
Oh, was it?
It was, and actually I only spotted it the other day when I went up to Warhammer World and was having like a little look around the exhibition hall, and it's quite a stunning army if you ever get a chance to have a look at it, because it's all completely converted and bespoke, and it's this Elder Force, and the person's used stuff from every different genre. You've got some of Spectres that are out of like old Sigmar and old undead parts. You've got stuff from the Dark Elves set in there. They've converted all of the vehicles between the Elder and the Dark Elder ones to sort of make them really, really unique. It looked absolutely stunning. And when you really, really zoom into the paint job, you can see that the paint job isn't as slick as you would get for, say, one of the studio team entering a single model. But on the complete entire piece,
overall,
it is absolutely amazing.
That's cool. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know if they'd appreciate starting to get, regularly getting whole armies in, because that might just take up all their space. But, it was a different approach, certainly. It's something that I've never thought about doing. And there are ways to use your army. There are ways, if you're creative, to have your army as more than just gaming pieces. It could be diorama. You could have a diorama at home, kind of set up that looks cool with some of your gaming pieces involved. There's lots of cool stuff you can do. But that's kind of, apart from that, everything else is the more general stuff we do anyway. It's about using your army. It's about telling cool stories when you're playing with your army. And it's about going to events and everything else within that. And that will last for however long your interest maintains in that army. But if you've selected your army for a specific purpose, then, and you're not gonna grow it, you've got, as we said, you've got this however many 1,000 points kind of thing, and give or take a few, it's there, and you've played with it for a while. What do you do then?
Well, so this is what I pretty much put as the last stage I felt was the life cycle, which is very much the end cycle, which could be, you've had your fun with it, what are you going to do now? And that could be anything from looking to store it, looking to sell it, looking to rebuild it. So obviously on the selling front, which is what sort of kicked this all off for me, was seeing people, on Twitter saying, army for sale, and listing out all the component parts that they had and what was painted, what wasn't painted. And then obviously over and above that, you've got the Heresy trading, you've got eBay, and, loads of other ways of buying and selling an army. So I think there is definitely obviously a set of people out there that, like to sell off armies once they've probably reached their sell by date for them, once they feel so they can't do much more with it. But as we both sort of said, for us, I mean, for me and probably for you as well, it's not about selling it on, because I don't think I would really ever sell an army on for the amount of time it would take me to get to that point. So for me, I'd always be looking to store that army, even if I felt as though I wasn't going to play with it again in the foreseeable future.
Sure. Yeah. So should we look at reasons why you might sell? So if you've created an army that has a limited kind of a specific goal, you again probably the gamers more than the others, but you've created your Ultramarines force and you've used it for however many months, and you've taken it to these events and you've used it at your club, and at some point you're like, oh cool, yeah, no, I'm getting to the point now where I could quite happily take something else. Well, at that point you might think, well, this challenge has been kind of dealt with, I'm going to move on. And in fact that might happen. If you know you're that type of person, that might happen before you've even finished playing with it, because of the time it takes to build and paint an army. So for some it will be, well, the challenge of this army has gone, and so I will sell it on. For some it might be that they've taken it on as a hobby painting kind of commitment, and again they've reached that goal. Right, well, I've done this, and actually I think I've learnt a lot doing this army, and I want something new, and we're going to move it on because I want to concentrate on that. I think there are factors that affect that. One is money. Like, do you have the money to keep collecting toys? Because we don't all have the money at some point. The money kind of gets harder to find if you keep just purchasing. And the other thing is space, particularly in the UK, parts of Europe, where I'm sitting here I've got all my armies pretty much, I've got quite a bit of my toys in really useful boxes stacked, so they take up only the same amount of footprint as one army will, but they're 5-6 boxes high to try and keep them. Now I can do that to a point. We're looking at moving house next year. And one of the things is, well, we need an extra room because now with me and the missus in this flat, it's tight. And if the situation changes at all, not even thinking about a baby come along, but we can't store bikes, we can't move too much stuff in, we can't buy too much more stuff, there's nowhere to put it. So that's a major factor as well.
Yeah, it has to be considered, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because I think, especially with Heresy, some of the stuff can be quite large to store.
Yeah.
Because I always look at a figure case and think, oh, it's great, I'll put my Night Lord's army in that, then realise, okay, can't get the flies in that, can't get the Dreadclaw in that, and you think, right, so I've got the figure case that's a quarter full, and then I've got all the boxes to go with it, because all this stuff's really, really bulky. So I think with Heresy, you do get a lot of that.
Yeah,
compared to maybe 40k in Age of Sigmar.
40k you get a little bit, because things like the Dreadclaws, there's no easy way of storing them securely and that kind of thing. So all of a sudden you're looking at a different storage method. So you've got like mixes of storage methods and everything else like that. If you're running out of space to move on to a new project, sometimes you have to make way with an old one. I'm selling off loads of stuff I don't use, partly to make room, partly to get money to fund other things, partly to make room, and that's how it's gone with some of my other stuff. It's exactly the same for if you finish with an army, and you want to fund the next one. Money is a driving factor, because we all need the money. But yeah, as you said, Facebook, eBay. I feel eBay, I always think is a bit of a risk. You can put up, I've seen people do auctions, and I think it works better generally, but you take that risk where people don't really bid on it, don't get what you want, or you put it up with a final price on it and it seems to sit there forever. Yeah, it's a really hard one. I think with the way this community is, the forums and Facebook groups seem to be better places to sell an army. But you are always going to sell an army easier by breaking it up. Unfortunately, it means a few things might hang on a lot longer, but you will generally make more money and generally get rid of most of it quicker. But do you want the hassle of doing all that as well?
Yes, there is that. I mean, I must admit, I've only sold a few items on eBay in the past, and I've always found it a real nightmare.
Yeah. And eBay as well. You know, remember, you're not only paying PayPal fees, you're paying eBay fees. At least with, if you're Facebook trading it and someone pays you your PayPal, you're only paying the PayPal fees. It's something that people sometimes forget. You know, because a lot of time and effort goes into these things. And the price you're charging as well, sometimes, you know, you've put your own time, blood, sweat and tears into this army, you've painted it to a standard, and you and certain buyers are going to have different opinions on how good that standard is and how much that's worth. So you've got to try and be realistic, but also, you know, you don't want to let things go for too cheap, do you?
Yeah, exactly.
It's quite tricky. It's and sometimes it's about, do I want, how much do I want to get rid of this? Am I doing it just because I'm moving on? Now, one thing you can do is you can repurpose some of that stuff for a new army.
Yes, yeah. That sort of comes in, I think, to the sort of the rebuilding aspect, doesn't it? Of should I just try and reformulate this army? Should I try and link it in with another army?
Yeah.
Is there a different way of looking at it, going, okay, well, this army was set on Isfahan 3, but now, you know, it's nearing the end of the Heresy, and I'm going to mix in all these other bits and pieces and create a whole new army, but making it very much sort of set in a different time.
Yeah, there's loads of scope for all kinds of things within that. You've got the option of literally pulling your stuff out and using it, because you might even say you want to keep, you've got a World Eaters, you know, Isfahan 5, but now you want a World Eaters Terran, you know, Assault on Terror Force. Well, you could take the troops out and actually utilise some of them as they are in your second army. You could take them out and repaint them. You could take them out and modify them, break bits off, and do like that as well. So there's lots of things. It's quite common for vehicles, I think, is the easy one. Because you can go from, okay, I'm going to do Blood Angels. Okay, I've done my Blood Angels. I'm going to do Dark Angels. Brilliant. Well, you know what? I need the Rhinos. So they can just be either stripped, you know, or if you're painting in not too many layers anyway, just straight airbrushed over, back to black and go again or whatever. And all of a sudden you saved yourself the price of 3-4 Rhinos and maybe a Spartan and a drop pod or two, you know, and that adds up. That adds up big time. It's quite a lot to save, and you can actually what you can potentially do, and a lot of it depends on how much fun you've had, how much enjoyment you've got out of it, and how much attachment you've got to it. But what you can do is, as you say, consolidate that force down. So I've got a Blood Angels force that's been a deep strike force, but yeah, there's plenty of dudes in here. I've got some Assault Marines, and actually, what I can do is keep a core of that for an allied force or for a Zone Mortalis force, and then, or one of the other systems you can play if you go down to a skirmish level, and then you can actually then take the rest of that. So you're keeping this little core, which maybe only takes, you know, a GW box to keep everything in. It's a bit easier to store than a whole Blood Angels army, but you still got your Blood Angels.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Keeping the key bits to
and then
be able to use it
pulling stuff into other things. And I'm sure there are loads of other ways you can go about looking at an army like that. I've seen some clubs even have like kind of club armies that get lent out to players. Now that fully depends on the type of club you've got and everything. It's not going to happen in many clubs, I don't think. But there are clubs out there where there is Okay, you've turned up, first night or whatever. Let's teach you. Do you want to learn how to play Heresy? Cool. Well, there's this club army. You can utilise that.
Yeah, that's cool.
Or seen it again with people just outside of that. It's people have literally kind of, right, well, I'm not using this army for a while. I'll keep on to it for a bit because I know you're interested in it. Take my army away. You're going to do this with someone you trust. But, try it. I've got a White Scars army and my mate Jeff wants to try out White Scars. Cool, well, you can borrow mine because I'm not using it for a while. Which can maybe give you a bit of time, because the one thing I am worried about is that you see it every now and then. Someone sells an army and a year later they're going, oh, you know what? Really wish I never sold that.
Yes, and I'm sure that happens quite a lot.
All the time. And I've seen the mantras of never sell old armies. Never do it. It's like, well, unfortunately, not all of us have the choice, Life can hit you with an unexpected bill and all of a sudden you've got to raise 1,500 quid. Well, if you need that money, toy soldiers can maintain their value. You might not have anything else to sell, or you might have to completely downsize. In fact, Dan, when he moved out of one place, he actually had to chuck some old Sisters of Battle in metal because he had no room for it, and didn't tell me what he was doing. Otherwise, I would have raced over there and stored it. But if you say again, circumstances change, you move out to a much smaller place. Well, again, you want a bed, you want a sofa, you want a TV. Like, do you need all your 8 armies?
Yes. It's a valid point.
Excellent. Anything else on that?
No, I think that's pretty much it. I think once you've gone through that cycle, it very much then can end up repeating itself, and you go back to the start again, and it all kicks off.
Yeah, I've got a feeling there are people kind of listening to this going, I have no idea what they're talking about. Why would anyone do that? And I personally feel it's very much a mentality that you have, or it's a situation you're forced into. So, I don't think, say for me, I don't plan for this kind of cycle like some people do. But if I've got toys on my shelf that I haven't used for 4 or 5 years, then I might think, what's it doing here? If I'm not getting any enjoyment out of it, why have I got it when I could be generating some cash from it?
Yeah, I think it's very easy, because I sometimes look up at my shelves. So I've got that shelf I've got next to me with models on, and I sometimes look at stuff and think, wow, I haven't touched that in 8 months. And do I really need to keep it up there? Does it really need to sit around if I'm not gonna? Because I'm quite, once I finish painting something, I lose a lot of love for it anyway. So
sure,
I'm only sentimentally attached to about 2 or 3 models, like my first Golden Demon winning models, that sort of thing. Other things, I'm very sort of like, well, that can go. So yeah, if I look at something, I can often think, well, that's, am I going to get around to getting that done?
Yeah.
Is it really going to, is it worth keeping that up on a shelf? It's those sort of decisions you've got to make.
Yeah, it's something I've got better at over the last few years. I've said that before, but much like your wardrobe, if you've got items of clothes sitting in your wardrobe that you haven't worn for 4 years, when are you ever going to wear it?
Yes, yeah.
It's just not going to happen, is it? And with toy soldiers, it's a case of, they might look cool. Well, then get them out. If you're not looking at them, then does it matter if they look cool? Yeah, maybe you do get some satisfaction just knowing you own it. That's fair enough. But then at least you're getting some satisfaction of it. If you just go through your toys and go, oh, I forgot I had this, and there's no connection with it, and you're not going to use it, then pass it on. Someone else will want it. There's be someone out there who desperately wants it, probably, and you can go and earn a bit of money that you can repurpose. But there we go. I think we've covered it to death. But I'm sure we've missed out some things. So if you've got any ideas for us, let us know how we can increase or get the most out of what's going on in that. That'll be cool. Brilliant. Okay, we'll leave that there. We'll come back after some music with Rob talking about his journey in Heresy. Joining me now, we have Mr. Ben Curry. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you very much for having me on.
Excellent. For those who don't know, you're a Age of Sigmar man and also a New 40k man?
Yep, bit of both.
Excellent.
Bilingual.
Something like that, yeah. It's all round bases now, it's fine.
Yep.
It's all good. Yeah, you can catch Ben on Age of Sigmar Daily and Ashes of the Imperium
That's
podcasts.
the one.
Ashes of the Imperium is pretty cool. I'm enjoying that one. Really good.
Yeah, I thought my appearance on the last episode was particularly impressive.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's the way it goes, isn't it? So I got you on because you are the man behind Blood and Glory.
Yep, that's right.
How did that start?
So, just in with the hard questions, eh?
Straight. There's no mucking around, mate.
Yeah, no worries. So, basically, it started by us just going to other events, same as everyone's events start, you know. We went to Adepticon as one of them, and some events around the UK. And while we'd already ran smaller events, we thought we wanted to try and bring the convention style event to the UK. And that was 5 years ago, so it's been a while coming. But I think we got a bit settled in the venue we had. We had a really nice venue in Derby.
Yeah.
Nice and cozy, fitting in about 100 people at capacity. So we normally ran about 80 for Age of Sigmar and then a couple of other game systems here and there. But then this year we've really decided to grow it, so we've gone and found a big venue and put it from there. But where it started was basically with that, just going to other events, seeing what people were doing and thinking we could really do something like that over here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I must admit, my first trip to Adepticon, I felt the same way. Didn't have a clue how we would do it over here. Certainly in my part of the country, in the south, a bit of a no-goer for cost.
Yeah, we thought the same, and I think the first thing you've got to do is start, you know?
Yeah.
Just do something and get the ball rolling and take it from there. And that's what we did, and that's where we went with it.
Yeah, absolutely. If you want something to happen, you've got to start it. Unfortunately, I'm not organised enough. But that's a different story. So this year, as you said, you got settled in what was a cracking venue in Derby. And this year you've expanded somewhat.
Yeah, so there's an amazing space in Derby called the Roundhouse, and it's a big old listed building, and it's one of those places where you'd go in and you think, oh, it'd be amazing to have a tournament here, but you never think for a second you could do it. And then I had a chat with the events team there, and you know, talked the numbers through, and thought, you know what, in a crazy world, this might be some way possible. So we gave it a go. We ended up booking for 3 years in a row at the venue. So, yeah, we thought, well, let's do it. Let's, you know, grow. Let's get all the different, Games Workshop game systems in and, make a big event of it.
Yeah. So what systems are going to be there?
So Age of Sigmar, of course, because that's kind of my bread and butter. It's what I play all the time. It's where we came from. 40k, that's what everyone's loving at the moment. There's a massive following for that, so we're going with that as well. And obviously they're the two main Games Workshop systems, and then we're going to be bringing in other systems around them as well, and one of them is the reason we're on this show, because you're going to be running a Heresy event, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. A full-on narrative Heresy event will be going on there, and it'd be cool. Hopefully be good to walk around and see the other games. That was one of the interesting things about London, about the London GT having multi-system. It doesn't happen, as we said, it doesn't happen as often over here. It's quite cool to get up and go and look around at what other games are doing and the cool toys they get that you might not be fully aware of. Certainly Heresy has a bit of that for other people because it's all tucked away on the Forge World site and not quite as well visited as the GW Prime.
Yeah, when we used to go up to it was the Northern Warlords GT. They used to have a big Age of Sigmar or Warhammer Fantasy event, but also a big 40k event as well. So it's really cool to walk around and see the 40k tables. And I get a bit of that because I'm local to Warhammer World. I'll pop in on a weekend and there'll be an event on, and it'll be like a Lord of the Rings tournament or a Heresy tournament or a Blood Bowl event. I'll be like, wow, look at the models. It's not the sort of thing you normally see if you're not in those systems.
Yeah, definitely. It can be dangerous on the wallet as well.
For sure.
So when are we doing this? November the
Bonfire weekend. So first weekend in November, same date for the next 3 years. So this year it's the 3rd is the Friday and the 4th and 5th for the Saturday and the Sunday. In Derby, so it's like right in the middle of the country. So wherever you are, it's normally only 4 or 5 hours drive at the most. There's a few crazy people. I've seen some, like Google route planners of people driving down from Aberdeen and places like that. I think we've got about a 7.5 hour journey is the furthest one I've seen so far, other than, a couple of guys flying in from Australia. So, you're going to have to go some to beat them.
Yeah, definitely. But it's the kind of event that can grow into that. Also, Derby's not far from Nottingham. So if you are making a bit of a trek of it, then Warhammer World's not that far away.
Yeah, I think we clocked it at something like 11 miles and 17 minutes from the venue to Warhammer World.
There we go.
So it's quite close. So if you come and you stay at, near the Roundhouse, there's, I think, 20 hotels within a mile of the venue. So if you stay there, you can walk to the train station in about 15 seconds. It is literally that close. And, train over to Notts is about £4 and, about 20 minutes. And then from Notts train station, it's about a 20-minute walk to Warhammer World, or there's, about 2 minutes in a taxi.
That's pretty good. And the tram as well?
You can get on the tram, and if you're really lucky, you get the Stormcast tram.
Absolutely. So, yeah, if you are further away, Europeans, it would be good to get quite a few Europeans over there. I'm sure you'll get some with the Age of Sigmar.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, if anyone's listening to this and you're a Heresy player, you fancy coming to the event, and you are travelling internationally, let us know, because I do my best to help organise travel plans, pick up from airports and things like that. So definitely reach out and let us know that's something you're interested in, because East Midlands Airport's the closest one. And again, that's 20 minutes, 25 minutes tops from the venue. So we're in a good spot. So hopefully people can embrace that and come to the event.
Yeah, it'd be great to see a an independent multinational event in Europe, because there are some, but usually it's when two countries border each other and they pop over. It's not, people go to GW for that, and that's fair enough, because you're always going to go to Warhammer World to travel for those kind of things. So, just on the Heresy side of things, just for people who might not be aware, I have said it a few times, I say it's a full narrative event. It will be like the old tree style campaigns, but I'm not going to tell people what the outcomes are. So if the Loyalists win the first one, they'll be on the front foot in the second game, going through in that style. And it's 5 games over that weekend, and it's £40, which is, a decent amount of money, as in a decent price. And on top of that, you've got to be able to look round all the rest of the stuff in a stunning venue, and GW themselves are going to be there, aren't they?
Yeah, so they're going to be live streaming, they're going to be having seminars. We're going to have the community team on site. Hopefully we're going to have Duncan doing some painting seminars. All that sort of good stuff. And talking about the price, I discovered something this weekend. Some friends of ours went to Alton Towers, and for a family of 4, it was a family of 3, because the youngest got in for free, and one of them had a half-price ticket or something like that, and it was over £120 for 3 of them, 2 adults, a child, and a baby. Amazing. So, all of a sudden, £40 for a ticket for a weekend of gaming seems awfully cheap.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? I think sometimes we lose track on that. That's, 2 days or a day and a half of fun and laughter and entertainment, and the Friday as well, if they want to come up for that. It's, you can't spend £40 to get 1 hour on a go-kart.
That's a good way of looking at it, yeah.
That's always the one I go to. It's about £40 for that. So, yeah, we got that. And at the moment, we've got space in the venue. So there is opportunity for open gaming.
Yep, open gaming. Friday there's gaming. There's going to be some kind of like Age of Sigmar skirmish and small 40k games and things like that going on Friday. All sorts really happening all weekend. So yeah, if you're interested, definitely get involved. The tickets are all available on the Blood and Glory website. You can go to bloodandglory.baddice.co.uk. Or just to be honest, just search for Bad Dice online and it'll come up. You can't miss it really.
No, absolutely. And there's a Facebook page as well, which, I'll make sure I link to and advertised on the Facebook and the Twitters and get all that out there. So the other thing I've been saying as well is if you are local and you can't come for a whole weekend, at least pop in.
Yeah, sure. Spectators are welcome, more than welcome. There will be a charge if you're wanting to come in and do the seminars and things like that, but just come and hang out and, watch the event and the action. It's just going to be free to come down.
Yeah, that's cool. And as I say, if you have got a Saturday free, you can come in and do a seminar. There's some of the people at GW are pretty good hobbyists.
Yeah, fancy that.
It's amazing. Even some of the people who you don't necessarily look that way, they're immersed in the hobby, which is
so
really good.
Because we're dead local to Games Workshop, and a lot of the guys who work there, and obviously they all play the game, paint the models, but they don't really travel to events. So we do get quite a few of the studio guys and particularly the people who are kind of behind the scenes doing awesome stuff in the company and you don't really see on the White Dwarf and things like that. So we get some of those guys coming down and turning up with just amazing armies each year. It's the amount of armies that are out there hidden away, which you don't see a lot of. It's really cool to see.
Big time. I need to work on some of my Forge World Heresy chums to try and get them down.
You should do, definitely.
I'm leaning on them. Whether they do it or not, it's a different thing. And obviously, this is the first year of 3 at minimum. So we're looking for, if you want to come down, be on the ground floor of this. There is something cool about being involved right at the start. Well.
You'll be like, I remember when it was in that tiny little venue, which only held 700 people.
So only 700.
Yeah, that's what we want. That's what we want. Look at the UK Games Expo.
Yeah, too right.
And look at Adepticon. They started with 100 people, I think, at a team event or something like that. And it goes from there. So, hopefully we're going to get big things out of this. But, for that, we need the support of the UK gaming communities and anyone interested in tabletop wargaming and want to see a big event like that in the UK, hopefully you can come out and support us and join in the fun.
Yeah, I would say if you've got a gaming group who don't necessarily listen to podcasts or this one particularly, go back and take it to your gaming group and see if you can bring down. I think the Durham lads are bringing a minibus for various game systems. Like that's
good to hear.
That's when
we like minibus.
Yeah, that's when it gets really cool. When you get I remember the first South Coast Grand Tournament, we had 10, I think, come down for that first or second one, and it's a proper club outing. We had shirts and everything. It's a night away with the lads without getting too silly. Yeah, excellent. Anything else that we should add before we mosey on?
No, I think that hopefully covers everything. If you are coming and you've already got your ticket or whatever, post up what you're working on. Let us know.
Yeah.
We said we've got a Facebook group with all the information about the event in. So just post up some pictures in there and get the juices flowing. It'd be good to see what people are painting for the tournament or event. It's not a tournament. It's a narrative weekend.
Dirty word. Yeah, absolutely. And if you want to challenge someone, if you want to put some calls out on there, we're all up for that. So hit it. Awesome. Cheers for coming on, Ben.
Brilliant. Thanks so much for having us.
I'll speak to you before November. Take care.
Cheers.
I'd like to welcome Rob Ing back to the show. Hi, Rob.
Good evening, Greg. How are you?
Wonderful. How are you, chap?
Oh, I'm not so bad. Not so bad. Channeling my inner Neil there for a nice happy greeting.
That's about all he does.
It's as close as I'll get to a Slayer sword, I know.
Tell me about it. It's like holding it for him while he's doing other things. Bless him. Yeah, indeed. Me holding Neil's sword. That's a different story.
Yes.
So, we had you on a while ago. Maybe some listeners are new, haven't gone back. Rob, you were, probably 9 months ago, something like that, a bit longer. You were taking your first real tentative steps towards playing the Heresy.
Yes, I'd bitten the bullet and thought, yeah, this is something I can get behind. So you called me for a bit of a chat about that, and we were both eagerly awaiting the arrival of Book 7.
Seems like such a long time ago.
Oh, it really does. It really does. I was listening to, but I've been cheating on you, unfortunately. I've been listening to some other podcasts, and I was listening back to one today with their Book 7 coverage, and just seeing when it was released, I was like, oh God, that was ages ago. So much has happened since then.
Yeah, so much and yet not much at all. That is the way of the Heresy, unfortunately. But,
Indeed.
Yeah, so the idea is to follow your kind of progress, and as we said, you just started, and we're putting plans in place, but without Inferno, those plans were somewhat kind of guesswork.
Yes, which proved to be ill-founded guesswork. I managed to build squad sergeants with war gear they couldn't have, or turns out they can't have, and what I thought would be bare tactical squads. I just built Marines with bolters, which, okay, I can have Grey Slayers just with bolters, but after reading the Grey Slayers entry in Inferno, I was like, oh, I can do so much cooler stuff than that, so I had to spend about 3 weeks snapping arms off.
Yeah, you know, and you can always find extra arms.
Indeed.
For Marines, that's not a major issue,
No.
which is good. So we move to you now a little way down the line, it's fair to say.
Yes.
And if you're on the Space Wolf 30k Volkov and Rukia group on Facebook, you may have seen Rob posting his stuff, a couple of other places around as well. But as you say, you got those troops done, and you've actually signed up for an event.
I have indeed. The Blood and Glory event at Derby Roundhouse on the 4th and 5th of November. Tickets are still available.
Good
I thought it's a fortnight before my birthday. I thought it's worth it because with it being that close to my birthday, basically I can get everybody else to pay for things like hotels and trains.
Sure, yeah.
And tickets. So all I've kind of got to do is buy the models and turn up.
Cool.
So and it's a fairly sensible deadline for me, far enough away that I'm not panicking, but close enough that I think, right, I can't just sit and stare at resin and plastic. I've got to pull my finger out and get some work done.
Yeah, realistic goals are good for painting.
Indeed. However, the day I bought the ticket, I did completely change my list.
Standard. Completely standard. So we're talking just over 2 months to there now, and okay, changing the list up a little bit, but where have you gone in that time? Obviously, so Inferno dropped, and the first thing was the stuff you'd already done need to be changed. I think a lot of us were taken aback with the way the walls were portrayed in Inferno. Quite how different they would be. Bearing in mind, I got told off once, I think, from by someone for saying they were structured differently than other legions, but yeah.
Not by me. Not by me.
No, it wasn't you. No, it was actually one of the people involved at Forge World. I think,
oh, do you?
Yeah, no, not. It was a little bit of. It was how do I put it? They said, "Oh, that's not quite what we said," and I'm sitting there going, "Oh, sorry." So it might not have been intentional that it ended up that way. You know what I mean? But it was worked out that way in the end. So yeah, you've torn some arms off and put some bolt pistols on.
Yeah, indeed. I just looked at the army. I've got the red books, and I looked through, and I just thought, right, what do I like? And thought, what can I build a kind of narrative round? But I was really, really struggling in that everything I seem to like is filth. Yeah. And I don't know whether that. I used to play Skaven, so that'll tell you everything that you need to know.
Badly.
And I've looking through the Forge World website, looking through the red books, and I think, oh, that's cool. And then you look at the book, and then you look at the rules, and you think, yeah, that is cool, but that's not very friendly. Or you look at something else, or Forge World release something else, and you think, oh, that looks amazing. I'd love to field that on the tabletop. And you look at it and go, yeah, but no one will talk to me.
When you say you look at it and think that's amazing, are you talking about aesthetics? Are you talking about background, or are you talking about the way it works as well?
I'm thinking pretty much the whole package. They're just smashing everything so far out the park at the moment that it's just pretty much everything they release. It's like, that looks good. The rules look amazing. The background looks amazing, with possible exception of the new plasma Sikaran with the
that
stretch plasma cannons.
Divides opinion.
Yeah, I think maybe it's an inch or two too generous, but that's just my opinion. But everything else, they've just been smashing it out the park. So I'm like, oh, I'd like to feel that. I'd like to feel that. But then when you look at the sort of synergies that you then create, you think that's quite nasty and that's quite tricky to deal with. I'm trying to not be that guy. Although with my list modifications this week, I hasten to add one person who's well known in the 6th Legion community has been saying might be a bit much, whereas you've been going, yeah, do it, that'd be cool.
Yeah, too right. As I've always said, 90% of the problems with armies on tables is the player, not the army itself.
Well, that's true.
But I think going back to what you're saying about that, I think there are very few Forge World Heresy releases that don't look great, even if you might not like the aesthetic of them. They're good models. Yeah. So there's that aspect. Again, the background tends to be pretty good for everything that we get as well. So it's hard not to like a release for those two things, unless you specifically don't like that style. And
yeah, I mean, that Varagir Terminator that was previewed at the open day the other week, even, I could accept that it was an early 3D print, but there was still some basic aesthetic elements of it that weren't matching the image I had in my head, but I thought might look different when they come out. I've no doubt they'll be the same standard as the Justair, the Death Shroud, any of that when they are finally released.
Yeah, I really love that model. I think it's cool. I think it's really cool. I'm not as judgmental, and then I don't mean that in a negative way. But
no, don't worry. Judgmental is almost my middle name.
Yeah, but it's not just you. That there are elements who will judge a model more strictly than I will, and that's what I mean by that. It's not a negative term in that respect.
No, but there are quite a few people who pass comments as if they could sculpt something better.
That's a whole different issue. There we go. That's life. And then, as you say, as gamers, you come from, as you said, we talked about before. We played Warhammer on competitive scene, whether we were any good at it or not. We were thinking in a competitive manner for much of that time. And I think most humans do like to think, most of us do have some aspect of, well, I don't want to get stomped. Oh, that's good. Or this works well. And that does influence the way you perceive something.
Yeah, it's. I mean, back in the Warhammer days, I wasn't very good. I just had a Skaven book, which was all you needed. But looking at this, a lot of people. There's been a lot of talk in the Vilka Fenrica community, and to me, an obsession with infantry. And I'll admit that Forge World have made Grayslayers, in my opinion, probably the best point-for-point infantry unit in. Troops infantry unit in 30k. But that's not all the 6th Legion was about. If you read the background in book 7, or you just read the background that's been kicking about for years, they were a fully operational legion. They had artillery companies, they had fast attack companies, they had everything. But there seems to have been some resistance in a lot of corners to people putting those kind of things in the list, which I've been like, well, why wouldn't you have some big guns to break down a wall before your Grayslayers go piling through it, or things like that. So it's been an interesting balancing act, which I've been affected from quite a few sides, because I've been trying to immerse myself in the community online as much as I can.
Yeah, I think there's a few things. So, first off, there is I've talked about it a number of times. We have this weird kind of dichotomy where most Heresy players aren't out there to smash face. However, we are drawn to the things that work the best. So that balancing thing is not easy. And additionally, sometimes Games Workshop have balanced based on hard counters. So, you can bring this, but you will lose this game if you play it. Which is not necessarily the best way, I don't think, and can cause some non-games. And then, additionally, on top of that, you've always had the I don't know how to play that, therefore it's broken mentality, where, and that's not, again, people don't necessarily think they have that mentality, but I've broken down games I've played where I've thought, oh, that's a bit much, and realised that I played it completely wrong. So there is that aspect of it. Certainly. And then when you're talking about the Space Wolves and what they can do, absolutely, I'm a big, anyone who's listened to this at any time will know I'm a proponent of taking those alternative to the stereotypical lists.
Yeah, I mean, one plan I've got in my head once I've done this 2,500 is to do an artillery-based list. To do a 6th Legion list that looks like it should be silver with yellow and black stripes on it. So it looks like it should be an Iron Warriors army, and go, no, it's just a 6th Legion support battery.
Yeah, and the Space Wolves have every Legion is supposed to be able to adapt, and some adapt less than others. And I don't think people would be worried if Horus chose to destroy an army this way instead of his normal spearhead way. People look at Space Wolves sometimes and think, no, it's got to be close combat, it's got to be up there. Where, again, we see right at the opening of Prospero Burns, I think. No, not Prospero Burns. I can't remember which book it is now. Anyway, you got the Space Wolves picking up alien weaponry to use because it's there and it works.
Yes.
I'm trying to remember which book that is. But they go to those lengths. It's like, no, my target is to kill this person. How am I going to kill this person? That works. We'll go for it.
Yeah.
And when you think about the fact that, they are called the Executioners or referred to as the Executioners, again, whether that's true or not, that's what people believe. Mm-hmm. So they have to reinforce that belief. And, sometimes the best way will be to, blow it up from afar.
It's certainly the image that they were promoting themselves at the time of Prospero. I mean, the incident that in the Heresy that always makes me feel this way the strongest actually got nothing to do with the Vilca Fenrica, and I can't remember what book it's from, but it's about the Shadow Crusade, and it's the Ultramarines trying to reconquer one of their worlds from the Word Bearers, and they phosphex the living daylights out of their own planet.
Yep. And
there's one of the named characters, and I can't remember who he is, he gets blown away by phosphex, and Lorgar reaches into the warp and pulls him back, and he's in the story later on as some named character, and I can't remember what book it is, but I remember reading it thinking, if the Ultramarines, the most hidebound legion of all 18, will phosphex their own planet to get the job done, what would the 6th do?
Yeah, and we see on Prospero, we see in the Night of the Wolf, and we see every time Russ appears, pretty much, that he is willing to sacrifice a lot to achieve his goal. And whether that's the best move, the right move, whatever, he will put his legion on the line to do it. When you see him at Yaren,
he's put everything on the line, and he's in that mindset of, I've done it all, I'm dead now, I'm done. You'll have to do without me.
Yep, and we see other times. At the end of the day, if you're going to assault a fortress, the chances are you aren't going to run on foot up to the walls and try and climb them when you've got big tanks, that kind of thing. So, and that goes. It's not just for the Space Wolves; it goes for everything. You don't have to have a defensive Imperial Fist Force. You don't have to have a foot-slogging Death Guard army. You don't have to do any of these.
No.
And it's fine. I think when people complain about you doing something like that, you can quickly tell the type. Sometimes it's just not worth arguing.
Yeah, some people just seem to scream keyboard hero, don't they?
Yeah, and I've seen it with other things as well, with proxies. Well, not proxies, with alternative miniatures and conversions, things like that as well. So, that's a whole different thing. So you've taken and run with this idea. So you got a core of Grey Slayers, I'm assuming?
Yep, core of Grey Slayers. They're both in everybody's favourite party buses. I've got a pair of Spartans.
Cool.
I've invested a lot in my Grey Slayers. There's power weapons up the wazoo. There's Vexillas, Nuncio Voxes. If I can pay for it as an upgrade, they've got it.
Sure.
It's just an excuse to do more modelling, do different things. So like everybody who doesn't have a power fist has a power weapon.
Yep.
A sword in this case. And I was going to be running a Leviathan and some quad mortars just for a bit of sort of more baseline support.
Sure.
And then the Sikaran Arcus came out. And I've always been a sucker for that shape missile launcher because it takes me right back to being 11 and buying Rogue Trader box set 1.
Yeah.
Where you got your 30 Marines, and there was that shape missile launcher, the one that Forge World first brought back when they first started making Heresy Euro miniatures.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they released the Scorpius, and I was like, ooh, yeah, I'll have one of them. That's in a box somewhere. I don't think I'm going to... I'll get around to it one day. And then they released the new Sakaran variants, and I was like, yeah, that's pretty... That's about the same points as if I get rid of my quad mortars, I could fit one of them in. Oh no, I don't have a spare heavy support, so I'd best drop the Leviathan as well. What else can I put in? Well, I don't have a Lord of War, and the Cerastus Knight Castigator is a nice model.
Cool.
And, yeah, my credit card's like bursting into flames in my pocket, and there's Pete Whitlam, Uplander on Instagram. He's been on the 30k channel quite a bit.
Yeah.
He's like, I think that might be a bit much for most people, that list. If you take all that might be a bit much. And you were like going, oh no, that sounds good, do it, take that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, if someone's got the answers to you, I don't think it'll be a hugely quick game.
No, I don't have that much. It's literally 2 troops choices, three HQs that I've got to have, and then big shiny toys.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. A lot of these scenarios are objective based. And people tend to forget that sometimes. So, yes,
yeah, the only way I'm going to win anything on objectives is if I completely wipe somebody out and then can park the remains of 2 units on 2 objectives and go, well, he's got none.
Yeah.
Other than that, I'll be like, oh, yeah, oh, well, never mind.
And that's not easy. And again, as well, this is a narrative event you're coming to, and with all my narrative events, when I kind of let it go free, and then armies that are maybe towards the ends of the scale will tend to get picked out to be playing against each other, or extra stuff will be added or removed to try and ease that as well. Because at the end of the day, I feel that if you put restrictions in, people don't self-regulate because people have different views on self-regulation, and again, people don't take into account skill on self-regulation.
Yeah, you see, that's a completely valid point, because if you think back to the old Warhammer tournament days where most events would be comped, everyone would go to the limit of that comp.
Yeah.
And be like, right, well, I'm allowed to do X, so I'll do X, because it's as filthy as I'm allowed. There was no attempt at regulation below that benchmark. It was like, right, well, I'll get to that benchmark.
Yeah, I think by putting limits, the event organizer can say that anything up to that limit is acceptable, and you might not want the majority of your forces to be at that limit, but by putting a limit in there, you've sort of encouraged it without positively encouraging it.
Yeah.
There is no easy answer. You will never get, unless we play chess, you will never get a completely even tournament in terms of what people are bringing.
No, and the one good thing we've got about the 30k scene is there's no riptides.
Yeah, I mean, there are one issue. You do get some, you do get some hard counters. You know, things like the night lists can be non-games, depending on what the opponents brought with them. And in some ways, actually, full infantry against, I've seen, massed infantry cause massive issues in terms of non-game kind of thing, because people...
I'd struggle massively against an all-infantry horde, because I don't have enough bodies to try and counter it, or enough big guns to take off piles of models at the same time.
Yeah. But,
a cults and militia list with some of those big blobs, and my Grey Slayers will be having a whale of a time, but there's not enough of them to get through those blobs.
No, absolutely. And additionally as well, we're looking at some of those, like Spartans. So, you want 2 Spartans, I presume, partly for the carrying capacity, partly because they're cool.
It's pretty much a 50-50 mix. It's like, I can get twice as many guys in there as I can in anything else, and it looks that cool.
And that's why Spartans are still popular, because they're cool, they're really survivable, and they can deliver more than the average tank. So they're doing 3 things that you think are cool. So Spartans are going to be prominent. If you bring in a Primarch, you want to try and guarantee he gets there. Put him in a Spartan. It's one of the best ways of doing it, that he gets there on time. So those things are always going to be ever present in the game anyway. And do I want to tell someone, well, not too many Spartans, okay, well, I won't bring my Primarch. Do we want games of Heresy where people are not wanting to bring Primarchs? Do you want to see a Primarch on every table? Possibly not. Do you want to see no Primarchs at a big event where they're allowed? Probably not. So, balance it. And the narrative events, again, that's why we do the special character kind of deaths, the reduction in ability, because it makes people think twice about whether they definitely bring one. But you can still bring one and have fun with it, and they probably won't get too hurt.
I like the idea. I think you've run it a couple of times that the first person to send a list in with a Primarch on it is the only person that's allowed that Primarch.
I haven't done that yet. Dan,
was that not you?
No,
that
Dan
might have been
Quirk did that. Again, that if someone's thinking, I really want to go to this event, say you had your list and Russ was going to be in it, and then someone else puts their list in and has Russ, and then you're like, well, I can't afford to buy anything else.
Yeah, I suppose it's not because I don't have a Primarch, and to be honest, I'm not planning on running him or getting him until I've got a lot more in the collection.
But it might be the only way you can run it. It might be the only way you want to run it. It might be that my idea is to use a Primarch that unlocks other things because this is the way I play my army. So what I don't want to do an event like Blood and Glory is where we want a decent number. I would love for like 60 people to turn up, 80 people. It would be amazing. I don't think it's going to happen. But I would love that many people to turn up. And for that to happen, you've got to allow the wide range of people to be able to turn up.
Yeah.
You can't be restrictive on that. If you're running a 10, 15, 20-man event, you can be more restrictive if you've got that many people who are willing to travel.
Yeah, that's true.
So, yeah, that's cool. So how have you... I've known you a long time. I know you do paint. You are a hobbyist.
I am indeed.
Have you found painting? You've gone for a traditional colour scheme?
I think so. It's a bit darker than some that you see, but it's based around. It's actually a primer. It's a Vallejo surface primer. It's one of their Panzer Greys, but it's quite a green grey.
Yeah.
So it's just the base grey is just flat Panzergrau, a little bit darker than the Forge World ones, or than the artwork in Inferno, and quite a lot darker than some of the ones that I've seen online. But other than that, I'm sticking to the bronze, the dark grey, the red, keeping it fairly standard.
Cool.
I've not started my Speakers of the Dead yet, and I'm undecided as to whether to go for black armour on them or potentially white armour or a mixture of black and white. I don't know. But yeah, it's the main issue with painting's just been time with having me little 18-month-old who's charging around like a lunatic, which good airbrushing does not help.
Yeah, it's standard life issues getting in the way there. Which is
indeed.
Cool. So, did you play much 40k before? I forget now. You play a 7-peg Warhammer.
I played 40k up to about 5th ed.
Cool. So a while ago.
I was still working at GW when 5th ed came out.
Sure.
Played a bit of 5th, and 5th ended up getting quite dull.
Yeah.
For lack of things happening, as opposed to 7th that just ended up getting really bloated.
Sure. So how have you found Heresy miniatures? Painting them, has there been any noticeable difference for you? Any changes?
Obviously, there's more prep issues with resin. You've got to you can't just rip everything out the cellophane and clag it straight together as soon as you get back from Forge World or from when the postman arrives. There's a certain amount of prepping to do, but I've found because of the kind of more narrative immersion of it, or the sort of immersion in the whole setting, I've paid a lot more attention to things,
right?
Rather than not based on the cost of the models, which you'd think, I've paid this much for a Spartan, I'm going to make sure I do a decent job. It's more a case of no, this is a character in this army that I'm building a narrative about, that I'll be taking to narrative events, so I want him to look how I'm imagining they're going to be in my head.
Sure.
So I agonised for weeks, months about what heads to use. Was I going to... Because I love the Mark III armour, but I don't like the Mark III helm.
Right.
Not, especially not for wolves, with the way that they've described that the face kind of elongates into a snout.
Sure.
And the Mark III helm is obviously very, very chopped off, very, very medieval. It looks great for things like Dark Angels and Iron Warriors. But for me, it just didn't sit right. So I was like, okay, well, do I do bare heads? Yeah, I could do all bare heads. There's plenty of third parties out there. And then I realised that over 40, 50 Marines,
adds up.
You'd have like every seventh guy would have the same head.
Yeah.
And I was like, don't really like that. I'm not a good enough sculptor to do them all. So it was actually yourself. It said, well, why don't you just stick Mark IV helms on Mark III?
Yeah. And
I was like, yeah, I'll try that. And picked some up on eBay for practically nothing. And we just really liked how they look. Put something into the fluff about the fact that their faces fit better in that more snouted helm. And the improved auto sensors of the Mark IV over the Mark III. Just in case anybody queries it. And yeah, I've just found it gives them quite a lot of character. I think the Mark IV helm's quite a bit more aggressive looking than the Mark III.
Yeah. Cool.
And quite a bit more expressive, if that makes sense, even though it's still.
Yeah, again, there are so many ways of coming up with reasons why. If you think something looks better, then crack on with it, because it's your army. You're the one who's going to be looking at it all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I've used all Grey Knight falchions for the power swords.
All right, cool,
so again, I managed to find online. I managed to buy 40 of them for about £3.
Blimey.
Because I've never seen a Grey Knight player put the falchions on the power armoured guys.
No.
But they just fit on perfectly into that wrist joint of the Mark III.
Yeah. And
you've got a mixture of left and right hand. So I got some
cool.
left hand pistol grip hands from Anvil Industries.
Yeah.
So I could have bolt pistols in either hand. So one thing I am quite pleased of is I've got an equal mix of left and right handed Grey Slayers in each unit.
Sure. That's about as much diversity as you can have in Space Marines.
yeah. But it's something that I've not seen before. It's normally everybody has their chainsaw in this arm and they have their bolt pistol in this arm. And in all the fluff, Marines are entirely ambidextrous.
Yeah.
So
that's cool. I mean, again, another good place for that, if you just want the actual hands, is the 40k Space Wolf box sets, the Blood Claws. They do have a mix of them, not quite that, that ratio, but they do have a mix, which is quite useful. That's cool. So we're progressing. You're going to get done on time.
I'm hoping so.
Yeah.
I'm hoping so. Well, I'm going to have to now.
Yeah.
Tickets booked and hotels paid for.
Cool.
So yeah, I'll have to now.
And how are you feeling with the gaming side of it?
I'm genning up.
Sure.
I'm going back through. Obviously, certain things haven't really changed that much.
No.
I've been watching as many battle reports as I can find of various standards, shall we say, and so to try and sort of give myself a visual memory. And I'm fully planning on bringing a cheat sheet. I'm just going to screen grab a load of pertinent pages from my digital copies of the relevant books and then compile them all into one PDF.
Yeah.
So I'm not searching through a million different books in front of my opponent going, sorry, I haven't played for ages.
Yeah. I think that's kind of the key. It's like you don't have to turn up being fully honed, wargaming machine with dice in a bandolier around your chest, but but having a general idea of what your army does and having the ability to quickly search for those ones that are slightly less obvious.
Yeah, I mean, the second I come up against a Mechanicum army, I'm going to be like, what does that do? What does that do?
As a Mechanicum player, it's fine. It's what everyone does. It's all good. It's all good. It's you'll soon find out which are the ones you need to kill first.
They're the big stompy ones at the back with the plasma mortars, isn't it?
It depends how well you spread out. It's normally the medium stompy ones at the front with all the wounds and all the guns.
I'm planning on taking neutron flux warheads, so it's fine. That'll take care of them.
That Arcus won't last long.
No, it won't.
No, that's cool.
That'll be target 1, I think.
Yeah, that's all part of playing the game, though. And war games are war games. At the end of the day, a lot of things are transferable if you're coming from another system. Target priorities and all that. They might change based a little bit on the rules, but not a huge amount.
What's going to hurt me most? Right, kill that first.
It's all good. Excellent stuff. So looking forward to seeing your army at Derby.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be quite strange because I've got a sneaky feeling there's going to be quite a lot of people there that I haven't seen in quite a long time.
Yeah.
And it's going to be kind of like, well, hang on, I haven't done this since 2012, and it's going to be like everyone's going to be a bit older and a bit bolder and a bit fatter, but or I know I will be. And but no, I'm looking forward to it.
Excellent. Anything else you want to bring up about the army, about your progress?
No, not really. I will when I get something a bit more imposing, shall we say, than the infantry. I'll ping you some pictures across.
Yeah, cool.
If you want to put them up.
Yeah,
if people want to see, but I do post quite a bit on the Vilka Fenric group, what I'm working on.
Yeah.
Generally there's might be a bit of green stuff in or whatever I tend to post up. It's a good community that actually for 6th Legion people. And anybody in the Yorkshire area, there is the Yorkshire Heresy Flat Caps, Whippets and 30k group that I set up, so feel free to add yourself in there. It's a bit quiet at the moment. It does sometimes feel like I'm talking to myself, but I'm sure it'll pick up eventually.
Yeah, different stories. We can go through that one. Yeah, no, that's cool. There's always something to be going on with. You're talking about the Volker Van Ricker group. Yeah, it's quite good. There are some issues with that book. They tend to get dealt with quite well in there. I don't seem to see some of the issues you get on other groups, which is whether that's because the nature of those questions is so obvious in terms of obviously that they need sorting out or what have you. But yeah, they tend to be quite good. That's cool. Awesome.
All right then.
Well, yeah, thanks for coming on. And
no, pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, the very latest. We'll see you in Derby.
Indeed so.
Awesome.
You'll have an update before then.
Cool. Cheers.
Cheers, buddy. Bye.
Bye. And we finished another show. All good. Now, Neil's got a very important message for everybody, so I'm going to let him go with that.
Yes, I'm after a rat. I'm looking for a particular little rat out of the a fantasy set. I will put it up on our Facebook and stuff. But if anyone has this rat knocking about and they feel free, they feel as though they don't need it or they, whatever, please drop me a line. Let me know. It's a little rat that's sitting on a skull looking up, and it's out of the Thanquol and Bone Ripper set.
Yeah, the new version.
Yes, the new version. And just after one little rat, really. And of course, it's amazing that I'm quite a big advocate of the bits sites. The bits and kits.
Yeah.
And I love those, and I'm forever buying bits. But then occasionally, you just can't find for love of the money the one bit. And sometimes they group bits together. Like they put all of those rats from that set in one bundle.
Yeah.
Which means obviously it's always sold out. So it's a real pain to get hold of this one rat. So I will. I'll put that up. If anyone's got one, let me know.
Yeah, awesome. When Neil told me this offline, I thought he was talking about the rat that's in his
loft.
In his loft, yeah. Which I've seen. I was like, you want someone to come around and help you catch your rat? Fair play.
It is a big rat as well in my loft.
It is a big rat. That is a rideable rat. Excellent stuff. Yeah. So, yep, go and we'll spread the word on the Facebooks and the Twitter on that as well. And hopefully he'll get one. That'll be cool. I would like to say that Fnatic the latest episode is out, talking Michael, who comes on, talks books, joins me to talk about Blood Bowl and Necromunda. So if you've got a passing interest in that and you can put up with Michael and myself, then come over to Fanatic Podcast and you can find the episode there. And hopefully you will enjoy it, because that's got some cool stuff going on. In terms of what this show's got going on, so this will come out very shortly before First Blood takes place up in Stockport, and we'll get all that fed back to you, I'm sure, on the next show. After that, we're rapidly approaching Blood and Glory, and I know Blood and Glory tickets haven't sold as well as some of the Age of Sigmar 40k. I fully expect that we're not going to do the numbers they do, but there are plenty of space at the moment. If you want to come and play 5 games of full narrative 30k, please come and do it. It's Derby, it's right next to Nottingham, so you can spend the Friday at GW if you don't want to spend the Friday at the Blood and Glory event itself. It's smack bang in the middle of the country, nice and easy to get to, and I hope to see a few more sign-ups soon. I was talking actually to one of the guys who runs Blood and Glory, and I find it quite interesting that Heresy players, in general, when I've seen talk about on the groups, appear to be less inclined to travel for things. Well, maybe it's just me putting them off. I don't know, but you have good groups around, and they'll travel a certain amount of distance, but there seems to be a bit smaller than the Age of Sigmar people I'm connected with, particularly. Stockport for Element Games. For me, I'm running this event, and it's a 5-hour drive basically, and we would, for the right event, we wouldn't think twice about heading up there. We might not go up there for a one-day for sure, but if there was a great event going on, we would head up there from the southeast of England, which is a bit of a pain of a journey. It's a pain. I'm not saying it's the longest journey ever for people abroad. It's fine. But I do tend to see the Heresy groups tend to sitting in and around the same bits, whether because it's an organised event, they think there's a level of competition, I don't know. If anyone's got any feedback, I might actually put some polls up on the Facebook page or the Twitter just to ask a few questions about that, because it's quite an interesting one. Because you have certain groups around the country in England, and certain parts of the US I know slightly less about, but there are strongholds, and it seems to be that if you have enough Heresy players in your area, the majority of them will just be satisfied with that, and that's cool, if that's what you want to do. It's just a little interesting thing. I know First Blood, I think the weekend, first weekend of September, I probably picked the wrong weekend. That was a bit of a schoolboy. I don't have kids, so I don't have to deal with the rush back to school and getting everything ready, or the last minute holiday, or what have you. So I think that has been a factor, and certainly how early I got the events out, with the number of events increasing, and still waiting to see the fallout of 8th edition. Certainly there are people at Blood and Glory I was hoping they were going to come and play Heresy, and they're playing 40k or Age of Sigmar. There's a few names there, so who knows? But it was an interesting one. But Blood and Glory is going to be cracking. Games Workshop are there. They're going to have seminars going on as well. They're going to
I saw something where they said they were going to be previewing something at Blood and Glory, which I thought was exciting.
Are they? They're previewing something at Nova Open. They're showing some more Shadespire stuff. I don't know.
And I think I was watching it on Warhammer TV, and they said something along the lines of, and you'll be able to see this at Blood and Glory.
Or maybe they are showing off something else. That would be awesome. I haven't seen that yet. I haven't caught up with Warhammer TV. But they're going to be there with the cameras. Warhammer TV will be there, plus GW as an entity in itself as well, which is really cool. So if you've ever wanted to meet Duncan, hopefully he'll be there. Fingers crossed. I don't know if he will be, but hopefully he will be. If not, there'll be other people from the TVs or the blogs, so you can go and meet them. And I've put some work in, and we're putting some more work in as we go, and I need to get hold with Ben and sort a few more bits out, but hopefully we can sell a few more tickets for that and have a good, fun event. That's all we want, really.
Sounds it.
Yeah, I had a few people asking me about, should I bring this? Can I bring that? It's all good. It's all good. That's one thing, actually. I wonder if, as well, because I kind of allow everything, that puts people off. Again, I'm going to ask at my events because I know, bless them, the Age of Darkness, Mark and the Age of Darkness got completely the wrong end of the stick, or whether he didn't listen or didn't hear to the event rundown properly. And I think the Eye Horus guys did something similar, and they assumed that this was a bring all slobber knocker event because I don't restrict lists. Where actually it's far from that. You will get hit for taking a list which is a level above what's there, but
it's done doing matchups, though, isn't it? Trying to match the right players, right?
Yeah, it's matchups. It's also some special rules thrown around. Again, looking at possibly giving bonuses to the opponent of those lists rather than negatively hitting the hard list. But the idea is, no matter how much you try and balance a game, it doesn't balance. And you're always going to get those kind of things. We'll try our best, but some people like playing, a stronger list. It's what they want to use, and some people prefer to throw down with whatever latest crazy kind of thing they have as well. So we're trying to cater to those different people, which hopefully it works. It's done okay so far. People have really enjoyed London Heresy. They really enjoyed Scorched Earth and Taken Reaver as well. So I know that the Bristol guys, Toby, Firth and all that, and the Hate guys who've come, the Sons of Heresy, really enjoyed the events as well. I'm not saying they're perfect. There's always stuff you can do better. But it seems it's gone down well for the people who've attended, which is all you can ask for, really.
Well, yeah, as long as people are having fun.
It's just an interesting dynamic. Again, this is something I think about every now and then. Not every wargamer does, I suppose, but having my feet in various different game systems, it's just a very different way of looking at things from the Age of Sigmar way of looking at things. I'd love to run more events in and around London. I wonder if actually, the other thing I've been wondering is kind of where we sit as a demographic for 30k in England. There seemed to be more support if I'd said I went to a venue further south than one further north. And again, that could just be that a lot of people up there didn't happen to be available. Or it could be that we do have a much higher concentration in the south, or those people are much more willing to attend an event than the ones in. I don't know. There's so many variables that can be thrown, but part of me begins to wonder that. I've talked to some other people up further north in the country who've said that they've had a little bit more trouble having an organised kind of independent thing, but there's still Heresy being played. Without a detailed study, you're never going to find out the full answers. But if anyone's got any feedback on that'd be good to hear. If there are specific reasons that people aren't coming, then I'm cool to hear them as well.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I'm really looking forward to hopefully Blood and Glory is going to become a Games Workshop convention, not run by Games Workshop, but
it's a really cool idea, I must admit. I think it's something that we could really do with.
Yeah, I would love if you imagine. Ben's committed to this. I'll try and get him on. Actually, I'll see. Actually, potentially we can retrofit him in this show. If not, I'll try and get him on for the next show. But he's paid up for 3 years for the venue. Kind of put a deposit down at least, committed. So he's serious about this. And imagine if it goes well this year, we grow next year. You could have Age of Sigmar 40k series trying to join in there without me pressing any buttons. We've got Age of Sigmar 40k Heresy, Lord of the Rings, Blood Bowl, Necromunda, Shadespire. They're all games that are Necromunda maybe not competition per se, but narrative. The other ones can easily be ran competition games. and that's before you get into any of the other GW games. You know, Titanicus might be out by then. You could have a 40k competitive, 40k narrative. There's so much scope just within Games Workshop, and you know, Games Workshop is flying. 40k is flying. Age of Sigmar is flying. So Heresy, who knows? Who knows what's going on? But the core's still there. Shadespire is going to draw people in as well. Necromunda is going to bring loads of people back, and Blood Bowl already does. So there's loads of scope for that event to become something really awesome, and that's why I said yes, pretty much straight away. I want to be in it on the ground floor of that, trying to do that. Hopefully, we can make that work. And
it turns into one of those ones where there's so many games going on, you can go to it and not even play any games. You go there just for the sake of going up and seeing everyone.
Yeah, and it takes time, and it all depends how they want to run it with Games Workshop's involvement, how much of that they want to keep and everything else. And that's not down to me. You know, I'm not one of the guys running this event. I'm helping out with the Age of Sigmar, with the 30k side of things. You know, part of me wanted to go and play Age of Sigmar actually with the new General's Handbook and everything else. But that's cool. I'll go and run an event. That's great. That's fine. And I'll feed back as and how I can going forwards. But it's down to Ben and the group he's got behind that and their deals with GW and discussing things with them. But there's a huge potential there. And if it happens in one place, maybe, you never know, we can have two. The UK could easily handle 2 really big conventions a year. Easily.
Oh, definitely.
Finding the venue has always been the issue because of the price of things over here, you know, and dedicated convention type space being available for a price that is available. Now they have the gaming convention in Birmingham every year. I've failed to go every year because I've had something going on, but that's more of a Gen Con style in that obviously not the same size, but it's board gaming, card gaming, everything. There's, you know, we don't have an Adepticon. Salute, people talk about Salute. Salute's a salesperson's show. You know, you go there, you might demo a game, and there will be the odd participation game, but it's about going and looking at all the vendors. And lots of small vendors come out for that. It's their big thing. And really push for Salute. So we don't have anything that's big convention. The guys at Falls Daily, Mike Marshall, held a convention, mini convention at Firestorm Games of non-major GW games. So there was all those little small independent games, and then the games that GW weren't supporting. So like they had an Epic event, I think, and that as well. Yeah, the games which weren't GW mainstays weren't receiving that support, and that was quite cool. But you know, it's hard to get these things going with the space requirements for those things and the money that's involved, and having it somewhere near links. You know, it's all very well finding a huge venue, but if everyone's getting off a train and paying 50 quid for a cab, you know, it's going to put you off, and there's no hotels around it. It's never going to work, is it? So, yeah, it's going to be awesome. It's going to be really cool.
Next year, I start running at the Blood and Glory, the Diamond Rush.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You wouldn't be able to enter.
No, but I could. That could be my thing.
Yeah, you need to find a way of judging it though, that people can complain about.
Oh, no matter what way you found, they complain.
Definitely will. Awesome. So yes, First Blood will be happening. Hopefully you'll all have seen pictures. You know, if you're listening to this just after it comes out, and go look on Blood and Glory. If you Bad Dice Blood and Glory, Google Bad Dice and Blood and Glory, or look in the search, look in the show notes, or put that in Facebook. That's the other one we want to do because there's a page for it there. And there's going to be loads of cool stuff, even if you can only just pop up. You don't have to come and play if you're local enough that you can drive up and want to wander around. To be honest, if I was only around for a Saturday and I lived only an hour away, I'd get in the car and drive up there and have a nosy. And I believe actually there might even be some space for open gaming this year as well. So keep an eye on it, and at the very least you can contact someone and say, you know, can we bring an army or whatever. It'd be cool to do. But there we go. As usual, you got any feedback, got any questions, anything you like, fire them over. Greg at theimperialtruth.com.
And Neil at theimperialtruth.com for all your ratty goodness.
Yeah, indeed. Get the rats out for the lads. And then Neil Paints is everywhere. On Instagram mainly, although not. So, yeah, go put up pictures and go bug Neil at Neil Paints on Twitter and Instagram. And at Child of Fang, I'm actually going to promise, at the moment I'm working on 5 nights at once, and I haven't been doing huge amounts. Like, every time I do something, it feels like I'm getting nowhere. But I'm finally putting some gold bits on. I've decided to just go with one Atropos, get him done now. I just want one of them finished, so I feel like I've done something. So hopefully over the next week or 2 around First Blood, I'll be able to get this guy finished. So I'll put a photo of him up. Just it's actually there's a lot of like filling in, but once I've got it to a certain stage, I can just do loads of washing, and that's all the metal done. So hopefully it'll speed up a little bit. I'll get that photo on Instagram.
There are elements, aren't there, of stages of painting a model where you just think, I just want this bit to be over. Most of get to the next bit.
Most of it for me. There's a lot of metal I've left. There's a lot of, because I'm using the shiny blue, you don't have to go over and paint that anymore. And then the metal, I'm literally leaving a lot just silver and then washing it down. So it's just picking out a few details for the copper and then washing it all down, and that's 3/4 of the model done. And then, picking out a few lenses and things like that. So hopefully one model down will feel like one model removed from the process. It will also pick up a few of the bits off the table. The armour plates will disappear as well. So I'll feel like I'm getting somewhere with it.
There's definitely something to be said for that. I've loads of little bits on Corax, and I've made an effort to get those little bits done. Because then when you look at the bits you've got left, you think, well, I've only got 3 bits left to do. It doesn't feel as daunting.
Yeah, absolutely. And the leg plates for all this are the right ones, unlike the Porphyrion where I had to dig out all the blocks, which happened and worked fine. It was just a bit of a pain in the rear to do, but they look fine. I just need to I could probably do that as well. Finally pin his arms in, because they're quite heavy, and for ease of carrying him around, I think I might want them separate. So all good fun. Okay, and I'll put some more photos on Twitter of that if I can. But that's it, I think, for the show. Check out the Facebook group, and hopefully see you at an event soon. And for those who haven't watched it yet, you can still watch the 30k channels video on their subscription channel of myself and Dan playing a game and saying a lot of stuff. It works.
That's wrong.
Yeah, I know I mean an 8 when I say a 10, but I come out with 10 for some reason. This didn't change dice rolls. It's all good. It's all good. Yeah, brilliant stuff. Awesome. Have you got anything you want to add to that, Neil?
Nothing at all, no.
Good form. Once again,
break the tradition there.
No, too right. Cheers for joining us. And you have been listening to The Imperial Truth.